Time for this week's RSPW Rewind, which has turned into one of the more popular segments on the show in a very short period of time, which I'm very happy to see. On Friday, TNT aired a preview special for this weekend's AEW All Out pay-per-view, which marked the first time that pro wrestling aired on TNT, and maybe any of the Turner networks, since 2001. 18 years ago. That was when WCW went out of business. So from 96 to 98, at the peak of their popularity, it would have been unfathomable, as popular as they were and with the money they had behind them from Turner, that they would go under, let alone go under less than 5 years later, but they did. And the wrestling business has been worse off for it. In 1999, WCW was already on its way down. The cracks were there, and it was a slow decline, but they were already on their way down. And it spawned this post from somebody named Blassie on July 8th, 1999, 20 years ago. The subject line was, "Serious post. Can WCW actually go out of business or shut down?" He or she says, "More likely Time Warner would sell it to someone, but only if corporate-wide losses became so bad that they had to do massive cutbacks. I don't know how well or badly Time Warner is doing overall, but I can't see that ever happening. And even if they did decide to sell, it would not be to VKM," VKM of course being Vincent Kennedy McMahon, "since he and Turner hate each other so much." And as somebody pointed out later on in this thread, by this point, Ted Turner no longer owned WCW. Ted Turner no longer had any real power or control over the company. So, scroll down a little bit. There's a response from ATL Rick. Rick says, "I believe Time Warner actually lost money last year, but WCW turned a profit. Even with the drop in ratings, WCW is still profitable as a venture for Time Warner. They won't be selling or dissolving it anytime soon." That brought in Stunatime, and Stunatime was offended by Blassie's question. It says, "WCW is giving Turner their highest ratings on their networks. Do you realize what a stupid question you just asked? WCW is owned by a billionaire. WWF has more of a chance of going out of business. It's not about ratings, it's about the money." Then Larry chimes in. "The only way WCW could go out of business is if Time Warner sold it, and they'd have to be insane to do it." Yeah, let me stop here for a second. You ever get the feeling, when you read an old thread like this, kind of go back in time, you get this feeling of wishing that you could jump in a time machine and just warn people of what was yet to come? Like, I get that same feeling when I read these old WCW threads. So anyway, that's what Larry says. Larry says that they'd have to be insane to sell off WCW, which brings us to N.E. Seafort. N.E. Seafort says WCW won't go out of business. They'll simply scale back. They'll cut people like Hogan and Savage. They'll wait a few years for the contracts of the WWF's current crop of stars to expire and try again with big money offers. We could see another mass exodus between 2001 and 2004, this time with Stone Cold Steve Austin, Triple H, Road Dogg, and Mankind leading the way. I love how he lumps Road Dogg in there. Leading the charge back to WCW, got Stone Cold, Triple H, Mankind, and Road Dogg. I mean, Road Dogg was a popular act, don't get me wrong, but come on now. Road Dogg is going to lead the way to WCW? Really? So then we have The Great One. I don't know if that's his name, I don't know if that's just a descriptive term, but he calls himself The Great One. And The Great One says, WCW going out of business is almost impossible, but if it did happen, I bet Monday Night Raw would turn right back into the suckfest that it was before Nitro came on the air. This man was a prophet. The Great One was a prophet. So then there was one more thread that ties into all this. This one was from the following year, March 15th of 2000 in the old RSPW group. A post by Jimbo Jones titled, "What the Sheep Will Do When WCW Gets Cancelled." He says, first, they'll keep doing what they usually do because they'll be in complete and utter denial. Then when it hits them, they'll be on 24-hour suicide watch, and half of them will probably do the dirty deed. Not that it matters, sheep aren't that important anyway. Then the remaining sheep that continue to post to this news group will do a complete 180 and praise Vince McGod and his wonderful WWF programming. It is inevitable, and when it happens, don't say I didn't tell you so. Now, his username was Jimbo Jones, but he signed his post as The Flying Fuck, which is a lot funnier and a much cooler name. In response to The Flying Fuck comes a post from DRK, who refers to himself as a self-professed Jerry Lynn disciple. I didn't even know Jerry Lynn had disciples. He says, everyone said ECW would be dead this time last year. Everyone said WCW would monopolize the ratings forever. What a difference a year makes. WCW can and will survive. Surprised DRK didn't break into some Gloria Gaynor when he wrote that. And finally, the voice of reason from Bo Moindes. Vince McMahon, until he got the XFL, and Paul E. have nothing else but their feds, which has been their whole lives. But AOL Time Warner has hundreds of businesses, and WCW is not doing well. The bean counters who run huge companies don't give a shit about pro wrestling, they only care about profits. I do worry that one day soon, some AOL Time Warner bigwig is going to walk into Bill Bush's office and say that WCW has been canceled. They will buy out the wrestlers' contracts, sell off the pay-per-view slots, and schedule crappy movies for Mondays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays. Bill Bush doesn't care because he'll just get another job within the AOL Time Warner empire, but every pro wrestling fan, mark or smart, will be worse off. How very prescient of Bo Moindes. That AOL Time Warner bigwig turned out to be Jamie Kellner, who pulled the plug on Nitro and Thunder, and with them, the deal that Eric Bischoff thought that he had put together to buy the company. Some other fun facts about Mr. Kellner. He was the man responsible while he was working for the WB network for canceling Animaniacs and Pinky and the Brain. And then there's this gem here, which I had to dig this back up because it's just too good not to mention. While he was the chairman and the CEO of Turner Broadcasting, Jamie Kellner gave an interview to Cable World in 2002. So this was the year after he effectively killed WCW. In response to a question about why he felt PVRs, or personal video recorders like TiVo, were bad for the television industry, he said, because of the ad skips. It's theft, he said. Your contract with the network. Now, mind you, when he says your contract, he's talking about you and me, the viewer. It says your contract with the network when you get the show is you're going to watch the ad spots. Otherwise, you could not get the show on an ad-supported basis. Anytime you skip a commercial, you're actually stealing the programming. Do you hear that, people? Do you hear that? You have a contract. You may not remember signing one, but you have a contract. And that contract says that you cannot skip any ads, or else you are a thief. That's right. According to Jamie Kellner, you are a thief. You are stealing their programming. What this numbskull fails to understand is that I, as the viewer, am not entering into a contract with Turner or any other company to watch all of their commercials. That is not illegal. It wasn't then, and it isn't now. I especially like the beginning part of his answer to their follow-up question, which was, well, what if you have to go to the bathroom, or if you want to get up to go get grab a Coke? And he says, well, I guess there's a certain amount of tolerance for going to the bathroom. Yeah, I guess so. So if Jamie Kellner had his way, you have to go take a leak, Too bad. You're gonna have to sit there and piss your pants and watch these ads for fucking Pep Boys and the new Whopper. Tough shit. Imagine the aneurysm that this guy must have had once DVR was created. WCW died because Ted Turner wasn't there to protect it anymore. He had a loyalty to wrestling. Jamie Kellner had no such loyalty. And that's this week's RSPW Rewind.